This is Support is Sexy, episode 18, with TV personality and Tai Life Media founder, Tai Beauchamp. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am thrilled that you are here with me because you know it just would not be the same without you. So today we have a guest that is such a good friend of mine. Her name is Tai Beauchamp, and you may recognize Tai. You've probably seen her on The View a few times. She's been on the Today Show. She's been on E! She's been in magazines. She's also an ambassador for InStyle. She's hosted red carpets for the Grammys and Oscars and done all of this incredible work with clients like P&G, CoverGirl, and Walmart, who work with her and her company, Tai Life Media, which is all about marrying social impact and style and working with these different brands to do that in so many different ways. What I love most about Tai, there are many things, but what I love most about her is just how down to earth she is, how funny she is, as you'll see in this episode, but also how real she is about her journey to being in front of the camera, doing all of the things that we see her do in the public space, and about what's really important to her: family, partnership, a lot of the other things that we as women entrepreneurs, a lot of us at least, face, think about, worry about some of the times. So in this episode, Tai talks about the importance of being open to signals from the universe when they come to you, which a lot of our guests are talking about lately. So I'm really trying to pay attention to that. Recognizing your calling when things start to happen and doors start to open up, that means maybe you're on the right path and you should focus on that. The benefits of having a partner in business and in life. The importance of keeping some things off social media. You will probably notice that I mentioned social media in quite a few episodes here. I have nothing against it, but there are some things that you may want to keep off social media. So it's really being intentional is the word that I'm looking for. And Tai talks a little bit about that. She also talks about something I'm a huge advocate of: the reasons that you don't have to be Superwoman, which is what this show is all about. Support is sexy. The motto is having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. A lot of us think we have to do it alone, or we have something to prove, or that it won't be successful if we got some help. None of that is true. You do not have to do it alone. And Tai talks about the epiphany in her life that sort of brought her to this moment. So I know you're going to love this episode. Won't keep you from it any further. Without further ado, Miss Tai Beauchamp. So Tai, thank you so much for joining us on Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here.
I am happy to be here, my love. Hi.
Yeah, so I have to ask you the question I ask everyone to start. When did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I don't think I've ever fallen in love with entrepreneurship. I'm glad and happy to be an entrepreneur, but it's really a love-hate relationship, to be quite honest. Um, Entrepreneurship is something that I think, you know, is really perceived as something very different from what it is. I think people believe that entrepreneurship is complete freedom. People think that entrepreneurship is being your own boss. People think that entrepreneurship is fabulous and sexy all the time, and it's none of those things. Um, what I do love about entrepreneurship is the opportunity to innovate, be visionary, and pivot as I deem fit for business. And I'm grateful for that. But I was a complete accidental entrepreneur. I didn't sign up for this. I had no business plan. It really just came out of me recognizing that there was a void around the things that I was passionate about and also skilled at. And you know, then people started coming to me to fill that void. And so, yeah, there it is. But I'm certainly not in love with entrepreneurship. I love the opportunity that I have in life to create and to build with entrepreneurship, but it's not easy.
Yeah, definitely not. What was the void that you felt like you either wanted to or needed to fill at that time when you decided to take that step?
So I've been an entrepreneur now for 10 years, and let me do the math, about 4 months. So March 26, 2006 is when I became an entrepreneur officially. The void for me was I am and have always been and had really started to see my passion around social impact and philanthropy and the idea of creating social impact. And because my work experience was in media and creating content and being a writer and an editor, I saw that there was this opportunity to combine the two. And then the social impact for me was specifically around empowering women and giving rise to their voices and allowing their stories to be told from their vantage point, which was honest and also style focused. So that's how it all happened. And that was void. It was really bringing together and fusing style and lifestyle with social impact and empowerment for women.
Now, all of this started not necessarily your career, but the origin of Tai is from Newark, New Jersey, right?
Yes, born in Newark.
What was Tai like as a child in Newark, New Jersey?
Well, I was born in Newark. I was raised outside of Newark, so but I rep Newark super hard
You do,
because
super hard.
I know super hard. I rep Newark super hard because I'm a fifth generation Newarker. And even though I grew up in the suburbs of Newark and outside of Newark, I went to church in Newark. I went to high school in Newark. And I always saw that as my roots. And I always have felt connected to, I think, the people of Newark, knowing my mom grew up there. But what I was like as a child is really, everyone will tell you pretty much the same as an adult, just a little person with a big ass voice. I was precocious. I was inquisitive. I was kind. I was loving. I was adamant. I always think I had like a very clear sense of who I was, which is interesting because I don't think that life experiences would have dictated me to be clear about that. But I think because my family, especially my grandparents and my mother, nurtured me to be whatever I wanted to be, it created a weird and youthful and also kind of like a conviction about what I could do and what I could be because they just gave me room. You know, they just gave me room. One account in particular was I went to private school most of my life. And I think I was in the 6th or 7th grade, and I went to this Catholic school that was pretty strict. And they have your name on the board and, check marks and things like that. And the day before, I had gotten my name on the board with like 2 check marks. I mean, I was pretty talkative.
Now, were check marks for misbehaving, or what were the check marks for?
Well, the check marks would come as you get your name on the board. So Tai would go on the board because I did something wrong or said something out of turn.
Right.
And then if I said something out of turn again or did something else wrong, you had another check. So, but it was really strict. So like if you stood to the left too much, if you stood to the right too much, you know what I mean? It was like very kind of ordered. And I wasn't that ordered kid. And quite frankly,
you were out of order.
I was out of order, usually. That's true. And so like I got my name on the board one day and I went to school the next day and the teacher never erased the names from the board the previous day or the week or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was like for the week, but then you got back on Monday and my name had been on the board the week before with 2 checks. And then that Monday he didn't erase the names from the board and they continue. And then when you got 4 checks on your name, you had to go to the principal's office. Okay. So story goes, I had to go to the principal's office. And it was like a Monday or a Tuesday. And I'm like, yo, he never erased the names from the board the week before. I don't belong here.
Right.
Like, I don't belong here. And I was like in 6th or 7th grade. And so they called my mom and my grandmom. And my grandmom and mom came in. And they said, well, why was her name on the board? And it was because I had asked a question of the teacher. Wow. And, it was a private Catholic school. And I wasn't supposed to question the teacher. Mm-hmm. And my mother and grandmother decided then, they were like, well, we encourage her to ask questions. We encourage her to challenge was she disrespectful? No, but we were taught not to ask or challenge the teacher in front of the rest of the students. And they decided then that I would go to a different school.
Wow. So they took you out of that school because of
Yep.
that. See, that's good because that environment sounds oppressive, you know, and for a child who wants to speak up or ask questions or be encouraged to ask questions and then to be told or stand straight in a line and so orderly.
Right. But the thing that's so crazy is you think about it now. I mean, so that was almost 30 years ago, maybe, right? Like maybe 27. I don't know. A long time ago. And it's a different time period now. People, that's not the way that we encourage students to learn. And I wonder, quite frankly, you know, I love millennials, but millennials also have, in Generation Z, they also have this kind of like entitled position.
It's the other extreme.
It's exactly. So it's the other extreme. So where's the middle ground? So I'm grateful that my family took me out of that school. But at the same time, like now learning is like, no, you do exactly what you want.
Right. Yeah.
Not too much. Not too much. Not too much.
What school did you go to after that? Was it a public school or a different private school?
So interestingly enough, that was my first year. I think it must have been my 8th grade year. I went to public school 1 year out of my entire, school career, except for first through 3rd grade when I lived with my father and his family, my father's family. So that was the 1 year I went to public school. I performed well. It was so exciting for me to be in public school. I went back to private school for high school, so it didn't last very long. But yeah, it was part of the catalyst for me. You know, I think my family just understanding that they wanted me to have my own voice then, and they fail it. You know, even as a kid, and I think that was progressive of my grandmother and my mother, who ultimately were both educators, right? So I think that, you know, they didn't have necessarily scientific facts then because differentiated learning wasn't even a thing then. But I think that they knew what was going to really kind of work for me.
Right. They did what's right for the child.
Yeah.
Now, who were your greatest influences growing up?
My grandmother, definitely. Mary. Miss Mary. Is definitely and still remains one of my greatest influences and inspirations. You know, it's so interesting because I would say my grandmother was the perfect grandmother. I don't know if she was the perfect mother to her 3 kids, but she was the perfect grandmother to me. And not only because she nurtured me, but she really kind of emboldened me to think. And she also was a wonderful example to me of love and strength and power and vulnerability and beauty all at the same time. So, and sisterhood, you know, she didn't have any sisters growing up. She was the oldest, or is the oldest of 4, or was the oldest of 4 because some of them are deceased. But she loved her sister friends and her girlfriends. And, you know, I don't think that was as thought out or as deliberate, but I remember her having phone calls with her girlfriends every Saturday morning, you know, starting at 7:00 in the morning, 7 to 9 before we went out for our errands. And then on Sunday morning from 6 until 7:30 before we went to Sunday school.
So it was like a ritual of connecting with these women.
Yeah. And she just loved her girlfriends. So, you know, she's definitely the biggest influence and inspiration to me.
How would you say both growing up in Newark or just outside of Newark and your grandmom's influence play into the work that you do today?
Oh, I think Newark especially plays into my work that I do today because, as you know, personally, after I left publishing, the first time I went to Newark and did philanthropic work working with kids in Newark. And as I said, my mother and my stepfather are both educators in Newark, as is my aunt, and my grandmother worked outside of Newark. So I think growing up in a family where a commitment to community was there, it's just a part of what you know. I didn't know any different. I must also just acknowledge my paternal grandmother, Sarah, who I was raised by as well before she passed, you know, was a missionary. and traveled internationally and had people from all countries, including Nigeria and Bermuda and Haiti, that lived in our home growing up. So I think the importance of understanding that our community was bigger than, you know, the people standing next to us, but really the larger community was important, was something that I just knew. So I think Newark played a major role in that. I think the other piece that played a major role in the work that I do now, and I didn't realize it until I interviewed her, was me starting my career at Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
I think had I started my career as a beauty and fashion assistant at Vogue or Marie Claire, where I interviewed, or at Cosmo, where I also interviewed, would have been very different from me starting my career at Oprah, where empowerment and caring about the woman and not her external identity, but how she saw herself and how she sees herself as a woman, from a spiritual, emotional, and psychological, as well as intellectual standpoint, really shaped why I feel empowerment is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And then thirdly, and then there's one more, is I was nurtured by women. My mother was a single mom until I was 16. My grandmother was a single grandmother who helped take care of me. So I was raised by women. I went to an all-women's high school, and then I went to an all-women's college. So then I think that being in environments, on top of my grandmother being a sister girlfriend, right, really supported the notion that women were important and they were my sisters. And last but certainly not least, the Newark factor, and also I think the philanthropic factor. I have to give credit to my mentor, Ray Chambers, who I actually didn't meet until I was a sophomore, but he heard me speak and met me when I was a high school senior, and provided me with a scholarship to Spelman, and he's from Newark.
Mm.
So
He met you when you were in high school as a senior.
well, so the story is that he happened to be at my high school graduation, which was a very small high school. And he had a student that was a part of one of his programs attend my high school, and he came there to see her graduate, and he heard me speak and asked about where I was going to college, learned I had been accepted to these top universities, but I decided that I was going to go to Rutgers because my family, my mother and my grandparents
I didn't know that.
paid for me to go to private school my entire career, or educational career, as a kid. But he knew I had gotten accepted to Spelman and heard me speak and was inspired and gave me a full academic scholarship to go to Spelman.
Wow. I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I knew you went to Spelman, obviously, but yeah, no, I didn't know the how.
Yep. So that's how I met Ray. That's how he became a part of my life. But I didn't physically meet Ray until 2 years later. So I was literally on scholarship through his foundation, obviously stayed in touch with him, kept him apprised of what was happening with me, and then developed a relationship with him. But Ray is one of those people who has been a benefactor for a lot of young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really fortunate that, in large part due to my upbringing, that I felt connected to him and felt the need to be connected to him. And out of that was birthed another relationship where he really is like my godfather. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for that. So he played a large role in the Newark piece as
Right.
well as the philanthropy piece.
I love that. Now, you went to Spelman, as we talked about. What was your major when you were there?
Well, I graduated with a major in English literature, but I started out as a bio major.
Okay, so it sort of transitioned into, or it shows how you transitioned into working in the beauty and fashion industry with that background.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
yeah. Now, what do you think? I know you worked in magazines for several years as a beauty editor, as we talked about, and you started at Oprah and had worked at 17 and was one of the first, were you the first beauty editor of color at 17?
Beauty
Yes,
director. Yeah.
beauty director. Yes, you were.
I
Now,
was.
now then came a point after several years where it was sort of a tipping point for you, or at least what I'm calling it, where you decided that it was time to move on to something else. What was that? What was that point for you, and what made you decide to make that move?
Crazy people.
Good answer.
There are those.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that, and I was very young, as you know. I was very young, and I felt this pull on my life to do something bigger that would be hopefully less stressful and or worth the stress. Because I was 25, 26 at 17 magazine and loved what we were doing and was really fortunate to be a part of a team that put young girls first. You know, I'm proud to say that putting girls of color on the page with all hair textures, all body shapes, was a part of what I did and actually what I pitched to them when I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt really frustrated at 26 and working extremely hard, meaning 16 and 17-hour days, and felt like I wasn't doing the most meaningful thing. I felt most inspired and most empowered myself when the teenagers came into my office to talk about beauty. And it was then that I was like, not to mention I come from a family of educators, so I've been around kids my entire life.
Right.
And I was like, I need to do something more. So that was a tipping point. And I also would be remiss if I didn't say at 26, I was struggling to find my purpose. And while I had had meaningful and purposeful experiences working at Oprah, working on the prototypes of what would become Suede magazine, working at 17, I felt like fashion and beauty felt superficial compared to what my stronger purpose calling was. So,
how did you know that that's what that was at such a young age? Well,
I think I knew that's what it was. Is having the young girls coming to my office and feeling most kind of empowered and invigorated and charged was kind of like an indicator. That was like, okay, you don't feel most invigorated being on the set shooting a story. You don't feel, and there were times when I did. I mean, I think about the times I worked at what I call pre-Suede, because I don't even want to remember what the name of it was then, but like, pre-Suede, I loved being on shoots, and we were shooting with Mary Ellen Mark and Scavullo, and coming up with amazing ideas, and I felt invigorated and charged then. And then, when I'm on the set at 17 or racing from a segment that I had done that morning on Today and going to a shoot and then going to an event with an advertiser. And I didn't feel invigorated, but I felt invigorated when the 17-year-old or 16-year-old came into my office and said, I changed her life by sending her to the dermatologist. I was like, there's something else here.
yeah, it's a self-awareness.
Yeah, it was just like something else here. Not to mention I felt crazy because I was dealing with, trying to manage up and not knowing how to manage up. I was, within a larger organization trying to find my place in my role and not necessarily always feeling valued.
Right.
And so assessing all those things really said to me that something else has to happen.
And that's when you made the transition into nonprofit work and working with Ray at that point.
Exactly.
And did that serve you? Did you feel like that really was the step that you needed to take or that it was the best step to take at that time?
I believe it was one of the most courageous decisions I made in my life, and probably one of the best decisions I made in my life. I did that work a lot longer than I anticipated, because when I talked to Ray, I said to him, look, I need a sabbatical, a year off to just do something meaningful. Like, I thought that was like kind of like my delayed gap year, or my delayed kind of like moment of just doing something purposeful. And I ended up consulting with his family foundation for almost 8 years. So
wow. I didn't realize it was that long.
Yeah. I mean, I just stopped consulting with them 3 years ago. So I had scaled back and I wasn't doing it full time. But even when I went to Vibe Vixen, I did my philanthropic work 2 days a week and went into the Vibe Vixen offices 3 days a week. So it was definitely one of the most courageous things, and I think one of the most purposeful things that I've ever done, because it has become a new floor for me in understanding why everything I do has to be connected to that. I couldn't just talk about fashion at this point in my life and feel great doing it. It wouldn't work for me.
There has to be more to it than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then from there, that was a transition to going into on-camera work and doing more things like that, right?
Yeah. So as when I started my company, we were working with fashion, beauty, and entertainment brands to help them develop kind of like social impact initiatives that would connect to marketing, but in a more holistic and connected way. So think about like the Dove campaign that one of my mentors, Mike Hemingway, worked on at Ogilvy, or think about Project Red, where it was about really like sustainability. Because at this point, I understood that you couldn't just donate 10% of a proceeds one week to one organization and really create social impact. So I like to believe that actually the work that I was doing then, though that's not what I did exactly, but it really kind of led to and gave life to like the Tory Burch Foundation and what she's doing. And how brands now are more conscious and also connected to, in a fundamental and a mission driven way, to help grow and impact what happens in the larger community, right? Um, so from there, as I was doing that work, brands that I had worked with previously started to take notice, like CoverGirl and Procter and Gamble for My Black is Beautiful. And though I had done TV segments before, it was really becoming the spokesperson of My Black is Beautiful, and Procter and Gamble's initiative around My Black is Beautiful that gave me the in TV, because then I started doing Wendy Williams as a part of an integration with them, and that really kind of like became the launching pad.
Was doing television something that well, you had already done it as an editor, a beauty editor, and that kind of thing, but doing it in the way that you do now, was that ever something that was in your mind, or was that introduced to you? It's funny asking you these questions because I know parts of the story, but I feel like other people need to know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The reality is like, even doing it as a young editor, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something I was like, I have to do. I actually felt more compelled to be behind the scenes and liked it, because for whatever reason, and it's not because I was so smart or anything like that, but for whatever reason, I knew that being behind the scenes is really the catalyst to change. I knew being at 17 as the beauty editor and having the decision about who I was going to put on the page was going to shift perspectives about how all girls were viewed. So it was a piece of it, but I felt more people were pushing me to do it more. Interestingly enough, I have to acknowledge her, and just having mentors. Amy Gross was my editor at O Magazine, and she just actually commented today on my page for the first time on Facebook. And Amy was responsible for promoting me at Oprah, and promoted me like 3 months in, and then 7 months later, and saying she was going to fast track me as a beauty director. And I had no clue what that meant at 22. I was like, okay, whatever. But Amy said then, like, and when I went to her after By Vixen folded, actually, I went and sat with Amy. She's like, Tai, you should just be on TV and be a spokesperson for brands and connecting with women. I always knew it was something that I could do, but was it something that I was like heavily pursuing? No. But after, I think, and this is where we have to have consciousness about, support is sexy, like, right? The universe also supports you. And so when things start to happen, you also have to take heed and listen to them and know that that's a calling, and be connected enough to say that this is something that you should be moving towards rather than away from. And then wisdom spoke to me, as it does now, and helps me to recognize that, yes, I need to create images in the background, but if I have a platform that I can use and connect with people visibly, that only amplifies it. So now I want to do both, and now I do both.
That's right. And I love what you said too about, one, the universe supporting you, but also being aware of the signs, like taking heed, because sometimes we have a vision, and we have the vision, but then we also remain so focused on how we think we're going to get there. Whereas having the vision is great, but I always tell people, let go of the how. You plan, you be in action, but you never know how this thing is going to show up. I'm sure you couldn't script some of the things that have happened to you, like, oh, Ray, this gentleman is going to be at my graduation and he's going to give me a full ride to Spelman, or, any of the other things that have happened to you.
I couldn't script any of this.
Right.
Like, I mean, even starting Spelman, I majored in biology. I thought I was going to be a doctor. I mean, isn't that what all Black people want to be? Doctor, lawyer, or teacher? And
Or
that was
business, quote unquote business.
right. I didn't even know business then. Family of entrepreneurs. So like Mary was asking me when I was at Oprah and had bylines, and Oprah like, when are you going back to grad school to get your master's to be a teacher? I was like, girl, never, never. Sorry, boo. And Miss Mary, so she
Right.
was about that. Yeah, I couldn't have scripted any of this. What I did know, and if I'm honest with myself and reflective of my earliest years, I think at 4 years old, when I started performing at church, as we do,
Mm-hmm.
go up there and sing your solo. Why don't you, recite the 23rd Psalms for them?
Right.
At 4 years old, though, I did know I would speak in front of people, and I remember God saying something to me then. I couldn't have scripted any of this. But I do think that and I was talking about this with someone else the other day. They were talking about how they've always been able to hear from God in the universe. And I do think that I've had that gift for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember God speaking to me at a very young age, saying that I would speak in front of people outside of the church.
Outside of the 23rd Psalm.
Outside of the church. But in the church too.
Right.
Yeah. And so, but I couldn't have scripted this.
Right, exactly. And that's another thing too. I think, well, I cannot speak for millennials. I have no idea, but I think sometimes too, people are looking for the exact answer for how to do things. It's just like, my thing is just learning more and more that you have to model what other people have done, but it still will be your own way. So in 2015, you launched your website, thetaiLife.com, which empowers women. What would people be surprised to know about Tai's life and the long road and the journey and all that it took to get here?
Where do I start? Well, I think in this world of social media, everything looks so beautiful and so glamorous. I think one thing that they would be surprised to know is I'm not really into the social media thing. It's something I have to do.
And something you've done well.
Thank you. You think it's more of a chore for me because I just like living. I don't, there are so many things that happen in my life, both good and sometimes challenging, that no one will ever know about, because I don't feel like everything is meant for everyone to know. So that's how I know I missed the millennial cutoff.
Right. Right.
Like, that's one way I know that I missed the millennial cutoff. There is no way that, I would want to showcase every single thing. And most things I don't want to, but I do.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is that people would be surprised to know that I'm a homebody.
Even though you have to travel so much.
Yep. I enjoy being home. Personally, I enjoy also like being in a hotel and ordering room service.
Right.
And not putting on makeup that day. As much as I enjoy getting dressed and that sort of thing too. And I think the other piece is people don't realize how much time I spend with my family. I think if you know me, you know that I go see my grandmother 2 to 3 times a week when I'm home. It used to be 4 to 5 times a week before I traveled so much. But also I spend a lot of time with my friends and my godkids. And the other thing is that it's painful sometimes, being single, until recently not having a business partner with you to go along this road with you entrepreneurially.
How important has that been for you to have to bring in a business partner, even though I know it's just recently?
Well, support is sexy, right?
That's right. Yes.
I mean, I don't want to be Superwoman.
Yeah.
I tell people that. That's my new thing. I don't want to be Superwoman. I don't want to wear a Superwoman cape. I want help because I recognize now, and it's challenging, I think, as a single woman to recognize it now at almost 40. I I recognize now that I don't want to do it alone. Had I known this earlier, I would have been a lot more focused on partnering both in life and in business strategically. And the reason why I say that it's challenging to have learned this later in life is that there are also conditions that you have adopted that are really who you are that become a lot more difficult to adapt when you're older.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having conversations yesterday with two of my girlfriends who are married and another one who's single, who just went through a breakup. And the two that are married both got married before around 28 or before 30. And the reality is that not that there's any right or wrong way, but knowing what I know now, I would have been a lot more thoughtful about doing that earlier, because it's easier, in my opinion, to grow and evolve with someone than to grow and evolve on your own and then get older and more set in your ways and have to try and adapt.
Right. Try to adjust to someone new at this point.
And it's not just adjusting. It's also, there are so many more requisites now,
Mm-hmm.
because I've lived so much more.
Right.
So you also want someone who has had their own experiences that complement yours. So there's not all of this adjustment.
Right. Well, I love what you said too. It's so honest. Thank you for sharing that. But I love what you said too, just about this idea of whether it's a partner in business or a partner in life, of being open to that now, even though it's later for you. It's later. You're not nearly as old as I am. But I've been having the same conversations with myself too, of just like, which is what the whole premise of this is. I don't want to do this by myself, and I don't have to. You get to do it with someone. There are people out there who can support you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been a real learning, though. I mean, it has been a real learning. And, hindsight is 20/20. But at the same time, I think to myself, it's amazing to be at this place right now, and also, still want to be open and still be open to all the possibilities, but having a different level of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
about that and how you approach it. So it all takes a lot more consideration.
Right. And I will say, with being older, you do know yourself more or better. So there's that. There's always both sides of it. Because at 28, you're a different person than you are at 29, which is what you are now, right?
Girl, exactly.
28 and a half.
Girl, can you imagine that? Like, when is what I wonder. When did that happen?
Right, exactly. So would you say that that's the one thing that you wish someone would have told you about just being an entrepreneur, that you consider getting a partner sooner? Or is there anything else that you wish someone would have told you, or that you would tell someone else?
So I think about entrepreneurship. One of the things that, and this is a very tangible and simple piece of advice, hire a bookkeeper for your business very early. I think it's really important to be, because I didn't have a business plan, right? So I find that a lot of young people, especially now, are quote unquote entrepreneurs. They start a company, that sort of thing, but they don't have any real clients yet, because a business is when somebody's willing to pay you for your services on a regular basis. But I think hiring a bookkeeper and being thoughtful about business growth and recognizing that it may be room for partnership.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, because I think now it's all about the me, and I can, and I don't need anyone, and I do this on my own because I'm so great. And
right. And look at my pictures on social media that show me doing it on my own.
Hey, girl. So I do think that is, that's a lesson that I've learned, so the bookkeeping piece, and you have to look at your clients as your partners too.
Mm-hmm.
So while you have a business partner, your clients are your partners and your bosses. And I think that's one of the things that I think we do really well at Tai Life Media is I don't even use the term client, when speaking to the partners that I have. So I look at them all as partners.
Mm-hmm. That's smart. And it makes them feel more included in the process. It's not just they're hiring you to do whatever this is. You're partnering together on whatever the mission is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, what has having a business taught you about yourself as a woman?
That's a good question. Um, wow. Um, it's definitely taught me survival, um, and the true power of a woman to manage so many different things. And because my business is part content and part me, it's also taught me. Someone said the other day, knowing that I had just been traveling and working, I got off a plane and hosted an event. And they're like, you would never know. It's also taught me how to mask things very well.
How to always look fresh like you just woke up,
Always.
just
Like,
had
oh,
a nice hot bath and you're so relaxed.
yeah, girl. But it's taught me that, you know, how to show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's taught me how to show up. When you're an entrepreneur, you sometimes may not feel like taking that meeting. But if that's a potential business partner or a partner or a client or what have you, you show up. When you have a presentation that you have to do, you show up. When you have to host something and you're feeling, you show up.
Right.
So it's taught me that I can always show up. I've learned that.
Mm-hmm. That you can always pull it from somewhere.
Pull it from somewhere. But, on a personal level, it's also, as I've matured, it's like, if I can do that for my partners and my clients, I also need to do that for myself.
I was going to ask that on the
That's
other
what,
side of that. Does the self-care become as important as well? Because there are moments where you're going to be so tired or so whatever. How do you balance that?
yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, today is a prime example, though. I stayed in bed a lot later than I typically do.
Which is what, 7?
No, 6:30. No, but I stayed in bed this morning actually until 8.
Oh, that's late.
Yeah.
It's late.
No, I know. I was like in bed and I felt guilty. I'm like, teacher tell us, no, you need to stay in bed.
Right.
Stayed in bed until 8, which is late. But yeah, I'm learning also when I need to
Stay in bed
sit
till
down.
8.
Yeah, but that comes with time because I also am finding that I have less and less to prove.
Yeah. Ah, that's good. Now, what
hmm
does your support network look like?
I have a really, really great support network. I will say that my mother is amazing in supporting and taking care of my grandmother, because that was, as you know, personally, has been for the last 10 years the biggest priority in my life. I think
Mm-hmm.
even outside of business. And for the first 5 years, it was, I don't want to say a distraction, but it took precedence over everything else. So I didn't make some business decisions in order to be there for Mary and with Mary. But my mother's amazing because my mom is always there with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have an amazing team of people that work with me. My brother shows up for me. My business partner shows up for me. And I have friends, that I really can count on and go to um, when I need something. And I've learned to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to do that. And I also know the huge difference is cutting the fat too. I'm a lot more ruthless and gracious at the same time. But if something doesn't serve me, I have less time to make the pieces of the puzzle fit.
Right.
I have less time for that. And there have been examples of that both in my personal and professional life in recent times. If someone comes onto the team and they're not the right fit, I'm not giving it months to figure it out.
Right. That's what they say, hire slow and fire fast.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's good too because what the things you're saying, when you say no to one thing, you're saying yes to something else.
And the power of that, Elayne, is so real. Not even just in people, but just in energy. And it's so interesting. I don't know. The whole idea of energy is one of those things that I think is a little bit innocuous and esoteric to some people. But, if you believe that in positive and negative even, so even if we make it more scientific, there has to be enough positive charge to balance the negative charge and vice versa. And I have found, and this is a point of clarity, and it's not a bad thing, But as I've become wiser, I know what energies I need to offset mine. That doesn't mean that everyone has to say yes to me, doesn't mean that everyone has to agree with me, but I know that there has to be a flow that is going to optimize how I perform, both personally and professionally. And when those flows don't work, then goodbye.
Then make changes. Exactly.
No, I make changes. Bye. Bye.
So what are you excited about what's next? I know some of the things that you're working on is an app and some other projects that you're working on. What are you most excited about today?
Today, I am up for a new TV show right now.
Yay!
Thank you. And so hopefully we'll get some news on that contract today, because that will also determine if and when I can take my vacation. So that's why I'm really excited about that. But it's another opportunity, I think, just to kind of widen and expand the platform, hopefully. I'm really excited about the app, which unfortunately probably gets the least amount of time and attention because of timing. But I'm really excited about this app that is a lifestyle service app for women of color. And I am also really excited about the book, which the proposal should be done in the next 2 weeks.
Very nice. And what kind of book? Is that a memoir or is it a service book?
Certainly not a memoir. There are some autobiographical pieces and elements of who I am, but it's more of a guide and a resource for women from my vantage point. And I use my experiences as I do to kind of provide examples and anecdotes from my own life. But it's not a memoir. I am too young for a memoir. Because if it's up to me, I feel like I am really just at a turning point, and I really don't feel like I've done much yet to have a memoir. I do feel like I've had lessons that people can learn from, and I want to share those.
Beautiful.
Also, get all that shit out of my head.
Right. Exactly. Oh, God. So just a couple more questions. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate you.
I love you.
I love you. So if you could think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would it be and what would you say?
One person. That's so hard. I mean, if I were to make it professional, I mean, the obvious answer is Mary for me. But I think it's too obvious.
It's not obvious.
No, I think Mary is so obvious for me. I think Mary is so obvious for me. If I had to say, so one person, wow. The less obvious, if I were to make it professional, would be Michelle Hucks at Hearst. She's someone that I still stay in contact with right now. She hired me as an intern in 1997, 98. And I interned at Good Housekeeping with someone else, I would think, Elayne Levine, who's my mentor in magazine publishing. But Michelle, I got my internship after the internship program had closed.
And Michelle is in the HR department at Hearst.
HR department at Hearst. And, it was a very structured internship program that had only about 20 to 25 kids throughout the company. And Michelle is a woman of color who got the green light to hire me because Elayne Levine, who is a friend of Ray's, who became my mentor, said yes. But when she met me, because she was the first point of entry, when she met me, she said, I came in and, they had described me as a former model and whatever. And I came in my suit from Spiegel.
Oh, I love it. And I must see pictures.
Oh, I kept that suit for so long. I came in my suit from Spiegel, and I told her why I felt like that internship was important. And she gave me the opportunity to intern not only 1 year, but 2 summers, and also to, internship programming where we fed the homeless after our luncheons because we had food left over. And I was like, it doesn't make sense for this to go to waste. And she always still takes my calls. So thanks, Michelle.
Oh, that was a nice one. So tell us, Tai, how can we support you? Is it going to the tailife.com? Is it following you on social media? Is it looking out for other work that you do? Tell us how to support you.
ABC equals D, all of the above.
All of the above. Got it.
Look, leave it to a Capricorn entrepreneur to ask for everything.
Everything.
One thing.
That's nice. Don't be shy. Everything.
Sign up for the Tai Life. Follow me and the Tai Life on social media.
Which is at Tai Beau.
At Tai Beau, at TAIBEAU, and at the Tai Life. And inspire the next woman. That's helpful to me. Because I feel like when we're all inspired, our collective community is so strong that we won't fail.
And I was going to ask you for a parting piece of advice. Would you say that that was it?
Yep.
Perfect.
Let's do that. Let's take it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I love you.
I love you.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to my website, elaynefluker.com/podcast. So that's ELAYNEFLUKER.com/podcast. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I'd love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.